Radio Al Ansar podcasts.
نحمد ونصلي على رسول الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Friday evening, the 14th of February, and it's me, Anwar Mullah, in the studio. It's the Business Matters program. A little bit earlier today due to an outside broadcast, so we'll be on from now till about Maghrib. And it's Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This Business Matters program brought to you by the Minara Chamber of Commerce and sponsored by Metal Islamic, your Islamic financial solutions. Yes, it was the State of the Nation address last night, SONA as they call it. A bit of a farce, 1.5 hour delay, and eventually the President Cyril Ramaphosa delivered his address. Mixed reaction to the address, and tonight we'll be discussing the address and specifically the economic aspects of the address. I have on the line with me a guest, and his name is Yunus Hussain. Yunus is the CEO of Investment South Africa. Yunus, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Radio Al Ansar.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good evening to your listeners.
Yunus, thank you for giving up your Friday evening or part of your Friday evening and joining us here on Radio Al Ansar this evening. Really nice to have you. Yunus, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started, and then a little bit about the company Investment South Africa?
I'm Yunus Hussain, formerly from Durban. I've been in the government post 1994, the past 25 years in the trading, investment, economic development portfolio, and I currently handle the portfolio for investment into South Africa, as well as foreign and domestic investment.
Okay, so I would imagine you're based somewhere in the province of Gauteng at the moment.
We are Pretoria-based.
Absolutely. Yunus, tell us a little bit about Investment South Africa. What is Investment South Africa all about?
Investment South Africa is a division within the DTI. It has been established to be a central focal point for all matters on investment, investment promotion, investment facilitation, and aftercare, as a one-stop shop functioning agency for all matters relating to investment. So intergovernmentally, it's one agency that will attract, facilitate, and implement investment into the country.
Okay, so Yunus, you must have been listening to the president quite attentively last night. I must tell you what happened to me. I was in Cape Town for the day, and I got to the airport early. My flight was at 8:15 p.m. back to Durban. I sat in the lounge expecting to hear parts of the address at least before I had to board my flight. And at 8 o'clock when I left the lounge, there was still no speech. There was all the points of order. There were hearty laughs carrying on all around me. And when I got on the plane, again, at 8:30 when we took off, the speech hasn't started as yet. And when I landed in Durban at 10:30 p.m., it was all over. So unfortunately, I didn't hear any of the speech last night. I caught up on bits and pieces of it today. But it was delayed by an hour and a half. And certainly not great reaction to that type of thing. Not a good show to put up for people that are wanting to invest in South Africa, I would imagine, Yunus.
No, I think the president got down to the business from the start. And the president delivered a speech that was business-friendly and highlight the aspects of the economy, the situation we are in, and the approach of how we're going to fix the SOEs and stabilize them, and then got to areas where government is making improvements in terms of investment policy, regulatory environment, and then providing certainty in a number of areas, for example, in energy, in infrastructure rollout, highlighting issues where there's improving the regulatory environment. So the president really got down to businesses.
A good speech in your opinion?
Yes, I think it was a speech for everybody. The president touched on various aspects of the economy, both social, and spent a bulk of his time on the economic areas. Gave a lot of focus, particularly to youth, women-owned businesses, highlighted the investment mobilization drive in areas where we have made significant progress from the two investment conference. We are ahead of it. Highlighted a number of sectoral master plans that we are implementing, the clothing, textile and footwear master plan, the poultry master plan, the up-and-coming sugar master plan, as well as expecting a steel master plan within the next 6 months. But more importantly, I think the President highlighted the pressing issues that are facing South Africa from the social side and the economic side, particularly the areas of energy, where we're going to be moving very swiftly in terms of a Section 34 ministerial determination of acquiring additional capacity within the next 3 to 6 months in renewable energy, in hydro, battery storage, natural gas and coal, as well as providing the certainty in how the programs will work. Below 1 megawatt, you just require a registration with NERSA without a license. And then above 1 megawatt, it will take you an application which will be done within 120 days. But also expanding the round 5, which would be another expanded round for renewable energy. And then also getting down to a municipal level where municipal at a financially sound can procure energy. So I think the key takeaways for us was that there is a significant plan now for energy. For me, also, the President focuses on the area of the regulatory environment. It was absolutely wonderful to hear that water usage licenses will now be done in 90 days. There's a program that I am working on, the Ease of Doing Business program, in which I think for your listeners specifically, for domestic South African citizens, through the business portal, you can register a company today within 1 day, in fact within half a day, where you get your BE certificate, charge registration, company registration, domain name, as well as UIF and compensation with banks that are linked to the business portal seamlessly within half a day, basically. So those are some of the strides that government is making to improve the overall investment environment. So President touched on a number of areas. Sectorally, also highlighted the areas in agro-processing, opening up the area for hemp products, looking at the cannabis industry. And as I said earlier on, the sugar industry is important for KZN. We spoke about that. And then I think a big area for us was giving us the certainty that the spectrum will be released this year in 2020 and the wireless open access network by sometime during next year. And then also set up of how we're building capacity and strengthening coordination within government, particularly in areas of investment. The infrastructure office is now up and running. They have a number of projects that they've identified and they will be promoting about 700 billion rand projects over the next 10 years in all the areas of social, student accommodation, social housing, rail, water infrastructure, broadband infrastructure. So I think more than the plan, the President focuses on a lot of the areas of where we are going to be implementing in the next year, the next up-and-coming years itself, and link that platform particularly also in areas of tourism for SMEs, the Tourism Equity Fund. But I think a great area is in the areas for procurement for SMEs, where there will be 1,000 products designated for local procurement, which will be significant to boost the SME sector. Looking at women-owned business, when we're going to be launching the She Trade program, and the IDC providing about 10 billion rand funding over the next 5 years. So we did touch and focus. The budget speech was for the SONA was for everybody, and highlighted more of this that will come in the next 2 weeks when the Minister of Finance rolls out the budget speech.
Yes, Yunus. I mean, you've touched on all of these very, very good things, and inshallah, a lot of that is put into work in the coming year, and we see the benefit of that. But coming back to the speech and the fracas that took place before the speech, the EFF and all of that carrying on in the House of Parliament, what type of message does something like that send out to investors? I mean, you involved in the CEO of Investment South Africa. For your company or for you, that can't be a very good sign to outside investors into this country.
Look, I think South Africa is a young, emerging democracy. What we have is a very robust debate. We have very open and frank discussions. And these happen in major countries like India, UK itself. It's a very robust debate. What investors want to hear is that what is the policy, what is your regulatory environment, what is your business environment, how can we work together to make a business decision in South Africa. That's what they want to hear about.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the energy side. And before we do that, let me just give out the numbers in the studio. The number to call in, 0861 904 904, 0861 904 904. If you want to WhatsApp, it's 060 904 1056. This is Radio Al Ansar. And if you want to pose any questions to our esteemed guest, Yunus Hussein, who is the CEO of Investment South Africa, ask him anything about the SONA, that the State of the Nation address last night. You're more than welcome to call in or to WhatsApp, and Yunus, I'm sure, will be happy to take your questions. Yunus, talking about energy, talking about ESCOM, what is your take on the load shedding, etc., and ESCOM going forward?
Look, I think that the ESCOM has to stabilize. There's a new management in process. CEO is appointed. But what is refreshing to see is that the announcement by the president cuts the cost of various areas in which South Africa can very quickly acquire energy and add capacity to the grid within the next 8 to 12 months. And that brings about significant opportunities, as well as in all areas. As I said earlier, in hydro, coal, natural gas, as well as coal. So the opportunities, I think what people were looking for is a clear policy directive, a regulatory framework in which they can make these investments. Now, you can also today, since the announcement and what the JMRE will put in place, the process on how you can acquire energy for below 1 megawatts. And it's actually fantastic, over 1 megawatts for commercial and industrial use, that you can get your application now within 120 days. So that's significant. And the point is where municipalities that are financially viable or capable or have the capacity, they can acquire energy. So that opens up the field to work while ESCOM is supporting and functioning on its own as a utility. It brings about the stability in where you can have additional generation capacity from the private sector.
Yes, I see that he's now allowed for municipalities to be able to buy energy from private suppliers as well, which means that there's competition coming in for ESCOM.
Right. The thing is, you open it up for independent power producers.
Right.
And so I mean, right now the urgent and dire need that we have for energy, and particularly for commercial and industrial use. So those things are welcome.
Okay. And the regulatory environment, I mean, a lot has been done in terms of trying to ease the regulatory pressures. A lot of people get frustrated because they're trying to do business and want to do it the proper way, but the regulatory environment is quite onerous. I see he's done a lot towards that.
Yes. What we've done is that we've beefed up and strengthened capacity of Investment Safe. We're running out the one-stop shops in provinces itself, where we bring national government together, different departments to provide advice and facilitate for investors, both domestic and foreign. We're creating capacity within the presidency to look at areas of unblocking, particularly in the policy environment, and investing is operationally does unblocking for the private sector. And we've been making significant progress over the past 2 years in this, and we're adding further capacity. And as the President said, we are strengthening the coordination and coherence in government itself.
Okay, I mean, has anything been done in terms of making visa approvals easier for foreigners wanting to come in? And I'm talking about business people wanting to come into this country, because in my experience, and I deal with quite a few foreigners coming in here, wanting to invest in this country, etc., they actually battle to get visas. I mean, it's quite ridiculous. And these are people that are wanting to invest hundreds of millions of rands into this country, and yet battle to get a visa, and the process and the time is really crazy. So, I'm sure if those processes are made easier, it'll attract more people to come into this country, have a look, and we have a lot to offer, that's for sure, and perhaps put their money into the country.
Look, I think there's major strides being made. We've done a lot in terms of the tourism visa and visa-free regimes in a number of countries. On the business side, what we do have is that we have investors saying we have a investment facilitation unit that focuses on visas. And what you must bear in mind that there are various categories of visas and permits. And in my experience, that yes, we can certainly facilitate and advise and unblock, but a lot of the times people are wrongly advised in the different categories of visas and how you do enter into the country, and that creates problems and challenges later on. So I would suggest that people that are interested, the foreigners particularly, they contact investors that gives you the expert advice and advise you how to do this, and is able to facilitate and fast track that for you within government.
Okay, excellent. That's good news. Infrastructure spend. We are certainly, Treasury doesn't have much money. The deficit is getting bigger and bigger. Infrastructure spend, and where are we going to find the money from, and what are we going to spend on?
Look, I think the hallmark of the new infrastructure fund, which the Treasury is working with the Development Bank of Southern Africa, it's a program that government is putting money over a period of 10 years, the next 10 years. But it's a program in which we would look for a lot of private sector support and investment, areas in which we would look at public-private partnerships, and so forth in the infrastructure programs. So I think that would be the norm for us to see how we can leverage off the funding of the fiscus for infrastructure. But certainly, I think the government is keen to start rolling out infrastructure because we have to start stimulating demand.
Absolutely.
In stimulating demand, we have to roll out the infrastructure as a support program.
Yes. Yunus, I want to talk a little bit about the announcement on the State Bank and I think the Sovereign Fund. But we need to go for a little bit of an ad break. And when we get back, I'm going to tackle you on those issues.
Radio Al Ansar, Durban, 90.4 FM. Peter Maritzburg, 105.6 FM.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you've just joined us, yes, you've on the Business Matters program a bit earlier this week from 6 to 7 due to an outside broadcast. And I've been discussing with Yunus Hussain, Yunus, the CEO of Investment South Africa. We've been discussing the State of the Nation address and specifically relating to the economic aspects of the State of the Nation address that the President Cyril Ramaphosa delivered last night. If you want to call in and ask Yunus any questions, it's 0861904904 and the WhatsApp number is 0609041056. This program is brought to you by the Minara Chamber of Commerce and is sponsored by Metal Islamic. Metal Islamic, your Islamic financing solutions. Yunus, thanks for being with us once again. And before we went on that ad break, I was alluding to the fact that the President mentioned something about a state bank and a sovereign fund. You want to tell us a little bit more about these two?
Look, I think that, various countries have a sovereign wealth fund. And normally when you have a breakwind and surplus, you have a sovereign wealth fund. And there are various modalities. For example, Norway uses oil to proceed on oil to create have a sovereign wealth fund. And I think South Africa, we richly endowed with the resources, and it has been a talk for a long time, and now I think it's been passed as resolutions in the National Conference of the ANC, and government's keen to establish a sovereign wealth fund, and I think more of this will be outlined in the Minister of Finance budget speech in the next 2 weeks. Also, the State Bank, that will hear more about it from the Minister of Finance within the next 2 weeks. But I mean, the State Bank, for example, will provide funding for all South Africans, but particularly in the areas of youth, SME, and women-owned businesses, and areas of focus, for example, in startups. That's where funding is posed to be a challenge. So that's where I think the core focus of a State Bank will be useful.
Okay, a sovereign wealth fund. Where would the resources to fund something like that come from?
Look, I think we have to start somewhere, and it wouldn't be given the state of the economy. It's not going to be something that is huge, but it's something that you can start off, and when as the economy picks up and kicks off, it can go.
Okay, Yunus, NHI, much about that?
Look, I think what the president touched upon it will be something in which I was touched upon in the previous SONA, but I think that the Minister of Health, Dr. Zolin, he will practically outline in his budget speech this year on the practical implementation of NHI.
Okay, one of the disappointments, I would say, is that not much has been done in terms of the state capture or bringing people to book that have been implemented in state capture. Now, that obviously does not send out a good message, and it also allows for the underhand dealings, so to say, to carry on because nobody's being brought to book. Isn't that not something that needs to be addressed quite urgently?
No, I think that there are these processes, legal processes, they are coming to fruition. The Zomba Commission has done studying work. The NPA is now beginning to do its work the main thing is that procedurally, legally, I think South Africa is in touch in terms of these things are now coming to fore, and there will be announcements shortly.
Okay, Yunus, in your dealings, and I'm sure you must be interacting quite often and at very high levels with potential investors into this country, is there optimism on South Africa out there at the moment, or are people saying, well, they might as well put their funds into other countries, other emerging markets?
Look, South Africa has the largest share of multinationals on the African continent. And what you see this year, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement coming into place, you see a number of multinationals in the manufacturing sector looking for opportunities in how they can set up as a regional manufacturing hub. And South Africa is rolling out a number of special economic zones to make it more attractive. So investors, both on the services side and the manufacturing side, they look at an overall equation of how infrastructure, stability, skills development, financial systems, in which they make a decision on investment. They don't make an investment decision, particularly investment in age. They make it for the long term. And South Africa is a compelling business case for investors to launch into South Africa for the African continent, particularly with this significant opportunity in the unpacking of the African continental free trade agreement.
Yeah, Eunice, we found this week there was an announcement, Anglo American, one of the largest and oldest companies in South Africa, have finally divested from South Africa, sold off their assets and gone offshore. Does that not send out a message that South Africa, not such a great place to be if one of our largest and biggest and oldest companies have finally divested totally from here?
Look, some of these decisions, they're commercial decisions. And if you look at how GM fell apart, it pulled out from many countries. So long as some of these decisions based on commercial decisions, that is something that we cannot intervene. Where it's an area where it requires government to intervene, so South Africa then has the case for a company to have its longevity in South Africa.
Okay, I got a question here that's come in via WhatsApp, and it says, Salams, I am 76 years old, living with only grant money. Can you tell me why you didn't touch on grant money and we were waiting for an increase? And I would suspect the answer to that is the Minister of Finance will be giving us the news on the grant money, etc., in his speech, which will be in the next 2 weeks.
2 more weeks.
Yes, so wait 2 more weeks and you'll probably know exactly how much of an increase you will be getting on your grant money, amongst other things. And the normal increases should come through, which would be the taxes on tobacco, etc. But that's more the job of the Minister of Finance, and he'll be doing his job in the next 2 weeks. Eunice, thanks for being with us. And before I sign off, would you, in your experience, in your opinion, we now faced with this global crisis of the coronavirus out of China. What type of impact do you think this will have on the global economy? I mean, I think it's scary what's happening out there, and it can lead to many billions of dollars worth of revenue being lost globally. What's your take on what's happening out there?
Look, it's significant, particularly also before the virus itself. There was, the trade wars, particularly coming to fore. Some of the major economies are slowing down. The post-Brexit is an issue also. And I think that, look, there are significant opportunities itself. For example, we would say that there are a number of factories in China now not producing at the optimum capacity or working in shorter times. That gives our domestic, for example, the domestic clothing and food industry to kickstart a growth plan.
Absolutely, I think.
For the local industries.
Yes, I would think one man's adversity is the other man's opportunity. So yeah, time to kickstart. I can certainly tell you from my own personal experience talking to suppliers of mine in China this week. I'm being involved in the men's clothing industry. Many of the factories have not opened, uncertain as to when they're going to open. They said to me most of the restaurants are closed, very few taxis on the streets. Everybody walking around with face masks. I think it's actually compulsory now to be walking around with a face mask in China. Even people that were trying to leave the country, trying to get to the airport, battling to do that. There's checks, security checks every a couple of 100 meters on the streets. Some of the flats you're only allowed to leave once every 2 days just to go and get your bare necessities and get back in. So a really frightening situation out there. I've certainly cancelled my trip out to China, which was supposed to be in the next 2 weeks, and watching this situation very closely. Yes, Eunice, any parting words from you for the listeners of Radio Al Ansar? I certainly appreciate your being with us. From the Investment South Africa perspective, give us some good news.
I think maybe for the listeners it's important that if you go to our website, www.investsa.gov.za, investors.gov.my/publications. What you'll find is the latest investors roadmap, as well as South Africa's investment case. And you'll find we put in this week 16 new publications, which are sectoral value propositions, from clothing, footwear to the green economy, the automotive industry. So it's pretty valuable sectoral information that's up to date at how you would invest or navigate your way into a particular sector. So you can have a look at, again, it's www.
Can you just give that? Can you give us that slowly, please? Sorry, give that to me very slowly, please. It's www.
InvestSA.
InvestSA.
.gov.
.za.
/.
Publications. Excellent. I'm sure there'll be a lot of interested people that will get on there and get some great information. Yunus, Jazakumullah for being with us tonight. You certainly have highlighted a lot of issues, and more than that, I love your optimism on what is going to happen in South Africa. I would really appreciate if we had more people like you at government level driving investment into South Africa. Certainly fantastic to hear from you. And inshallah, when you're in Durban the next time, do visit us in the studios of Radio Al Ansar, and we'll have a great discussion together on various aspects of investment into South Africa. Thank you once again, and all the best to you and your family. And thank you for looking after Investment South Africa and bringing in many billions of rands of investment into South Africa.
Thank you, and Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That's it for me for tonight on the Business Matters program, as a little bit earlier, just finishing off before the Maghrib Salah. And inshallah, I'll be back with you next week. Imran not with me tonight, has other things to do. Wonder what. But anyhow, we'll meet next week, Friday, and inshallah, he'll be back in the studio, and we'll have another interesting guest on the Business Matters program. So for me, Anwar Mullah, signing off on Business Matters on behalf of the Minara Chamber of Commerce, and brought to you by Metal Islamic, your Islamic financial solution. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Radio Al Ansar podcasts.